I think we live in an era where tearing down institutions is just something that's kind of in vogue, right? People want to attack, whether it be governments or schools or even industries. I think I want to spend my career trying to build one up.
This is the Grace Story Podcast. Today, our guest on the podcast is Vice President of Advancement here at Grace, Mr. John Sloat. John holds degrees both from Grace College and Grace Theological Seminary, as well as a Master's of Theology from Southern Seminary. John has been at Grace for many years and poured into the institution in various positions, and currently, as the VP of Advancement, has done a fantastic job and bringing some new excitement to the office. So, John, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Drew, thanks for having me. This is great.
Well, you are an aficionado of podcasts. Both you have one yourself. How long have you been doing your podcast?
So we started that January of 2020. So at the end of 2019, we had done some test episodes that have never seen the light of day that exist and are no longer there. And then we launched the official Various and Sundry podcast like January of 2020. We were very early in tracking COVID. So I had a trip planned to Taiwan that year. And so we were watching this disease creep across the world, and we're wondering if my trip to Taiwan would happen, and it didn't.
Oh,
so we had to stop that trip.
You and Dr. Matt Harmon have done that one together for many years. How many episodes are you at?
We just recorded. Oh my goodness, 266.
Oh, okay. Well, the Grace Story Podcast is not quite there, but we're catching up.
Yeah,
we're coming for you.
Come on.
No, that's good. It's a great podcast. You actually do it live on the chapel stage, and you'll be doing that here in a week or so, which is fantastic. Well, let's hear your story a little bit. Just even, how did you get to Grace College as an undergraduate student yourself?
Yeah, so my mom is a Grace College graduate. I won't say her class year because she won't appreciate that. But I grew up with a Grace College hoodie. So I grew up hearing about Grace College, knowing about Grace College, but we always lived out on the East Coast. And so never had a chance to visit Winona Lake until we ran into now Dr. Mark Pohl at a admissions fair in the Pittsburgh area. And he convinced me that I should come look at Grace, I should come see it. And my mom was obviously very enthusiastic about that. And so we came out to Grace, explored it, and everything just fell in place. And I came out fall of 2006 to the campus.
Did you know at that time that you wanted to study theology, the Bible? Was that your focus from the beginning?
Yeah, it was always a hobby of mine. I was always curious, always reading, wanting to learn more, always asking my pastor follow-up questions on his sermon and things like that. But I really
was
enjoyed.
Not that kid in the youth group, as you might imagine, but I admire that.
But I really love sports, and so I really wanted to come in. And one of the things that drew me to Grace was the fact that they had a sport management major at the time, and still do. And so that's what really drew me in. Got to know Dr. Johnson at the time here, and then sort of added youth ministry as a minor, and eventually felt a little bit more of a calling toward ministry and made the switch probably my sophomore year to ministry.
And then did you roll right into seminary education afterwards?
Yeah. So before it was cool, I graduated in 3.5 years. And, when my advisor at the time told me, oh, this is impossible. And somehow we made it happen. And initially, when I was getting ready to graduate, I had a job offer in the Pittsburgh area at a church. And just through a series of events that took place, the Lord sort of removed that from the table. And so that wasn't an option. And that was a week before I was graduating in December. And so in that week, I found a place to live. I got into seminary, and I found a job in town. And so I was waiting tables at the local Applebee's here, and living at a Mike Yoakum rental on Main Street, and started taking classes. And that's how I ended up in seminary. It wasn't part of the plan necessarily, but I think I can honestly say that seminary at Grace was one of the most formative times of my life.
Well, your career journey, like mine, didn't have this like path that it was clarifying straight from the beginning. The Lord sort of weaved you in and out of
Oh,
a
yeah.
few different opportunities, but all sort of within the context of Grace College and Grace Theological Seminary. And before we go through some of that journey, I know something about you is you're kind of an institutionalist. So even sort of
Yeah.
philosophically, like what does that mean for you to, even if it's in different contexts and in different roles, to be at a place?
Yeah, I and this is probably something that I've conceptualized probably in the last few years, more than even throughout my journey. But yeah, I think we live in an era where tearing down institutions is just something that's kind of in vogue, right? People want to attack whether it be governments or schools or even industries. I think I want to spend my career trying to build one up, trying to build something that's going to outlast me, build something that I can leave behind and ultimately hand off to somebody else, and try to make it leave, particularly Grace, better than how I found it.
So in that vein, talk about some ways that you have been engaged at Grace over the years. Like, how did you get to this role of VP of Advancement?
Yeah. So when I was in Louisville, Kentucky, which I refer to affectionately as my year abroad from Grace, I just really wanted to be back. I really wanted to be here. And so started applying for jobs on campus and got the resident director of Beta Hall job at the time.
Everyone's dream job.
Yes, I often tell groups of people that I lived in the dorm by choice and mentored young men for 4 years.
It is a great culture.
It's incredible. And I used to say the building had not been updated since 1966 until you became president, and they updated the bathrooms. I think they updated the bathrooms to like 1985, but the bathrooms have been updated now, which is just great. Following that, through relationships that I had with Dr. John Lillis in particular was wonderful in this time. He really guided me and helped me move into the seminary, where we had a grant-funded position where I was able to engage with students who were looking to go into ministry and help them get their bachelor's degree and their master's of divinity degree in 5 years. So
Which you were on the fast track, but it still took you.
It took me 6.5, 7.
Right, yeah.
So it took me a long time, but I was able to. It was, and the program had existed for some time. But one of the directives I had was to just get more students into that program, and so I was involved in recruitment, retention, and ultimately job placement of those students, in addition to teaching a few courses, advising those students, and engaging with them. And that was a blast. We had close to 50 students in that program when I left, and that was a hard one to leave. But I had gotten the opportunity to be a part of some grant writing teams and really enjoyed that grant writing and grant making process, and had done even a few donor visits along the way. And you called me shortly before you became president and said, I think I'd like you to explore doing development. And so I did that for 2.5 years before moving into the vice presidency role.
Definitely a winding path, but you look back and you're like, kind of makes sense. Which I think is often the case in fundraising, right? Like nobody typically in third grade is like, hey, you know what I want to do with my life is ask people for money. But God's path definitely has led you there in a unique way, and yet it makes sense.
And it's a great way to know an institution as well, sort of diving in and being a part of one. Like I can see the way the institution functions from just about any area of campus now, and that's been really exciting and fun.
So still, you are a theology nerd by heart.
Yeah,
And mind, and that's a great thing even in your role. So as you think through that vein of sort of theology, how does that inform how you do your work in development, alumni relations, community relations as a VP of advancement?
Yeah, any good good person that's going to study theology needs to come asking really good questions. And so that was something Matt Harmon really instilled in me when I was in his mentoring group was, my goodness, if you get a chance to engage with somebody that's top of their field, super important, be sure to have a couple of really good questions to ask them. And that's how I've kind of tried to approach fundraising, meeting with these incredible individuals that have done some incredible things in their career, and just being like, hey, tell me about XYZ, or tell me about that, or you mentioned this, and I'd like to ask you more. I really think fundraising is a lot of curiosity and a lot of listening and engaging with people.
That's a very practical application of a theological truth. So let's talk about you accepting the role of VP advancement. I remember it was last summer. We decided to do a search for the role, and you very quickly said, like, I want that job. And I was impressed by that. Your willingness to not just say, like, I think I might have some, but like, no, I want to do that. What made you decide that you wanted to pursue that level of leadership at this time in your life?
Yeah.
And to go for it?
Yeah. Well, one, I have a great support system around me that encouraged me to do that. You know, mentors like Matt Harmon. My wife was an incredible encourager throughout that time. My parents also Grace grads, or my mom's a Grace grad, and they live up in Goshen, and they were incredibly encouraging toward that end as well. So that was one big piece of it. Another piece was I thought I could do it. And when you think you can do something, you go for it. You know, I think I told our HR director, who I'm pretty close with. I told him, I'm like, Norm, I'm shooting my shot, man. I'm going to go for it. And I think there's some healthy risk taking that I've chosen to do throughout my career, and I think this is one of them.
Yeah.
Bigger picture, though, I think this is a pretty strategic role to build this institution and to make sure that it's here well beyond me and you. To make sure that it's here for the next. We're coming up on 100 years of Grace College and Grace Theological Seminary in, 12 years?
Mm-hmm.
12 years from now?
Yes.
And I want to make sure it's here for another 100 years.
So you got the job. You did a great job through that whole process. I was really impressed, and I put you through the ringer, no joke.
Yes. Through that process, I made sure I was out of town about 2 weeks out of every month. Just because it was a lot.
It was, but you earned it, and then you started, and on your second day, received a check for $27 million. And I now say, you have already proven yourself as the most effective VP of advancement, at least better than one of the last guys, which was me, just with that alone. But you definitely jumped in the middle of a lot of opportunity. And opportunity is exciting, and opportunity is overwhelming. So just talk about your first 6 months on the job and what you've learned about yourself, and what you've learned anew about Grace College and Grace Theological Seminary.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It was a lot jumping in. I often say, I wish that money got wired into us, right? So there wasn't a physical check. I wanted a physical check so that I could take a selfie with it, do some of those sorts of things.
And just so everyone knows, we received a Catalyst Corridor grant from Lilly Endowment.
That's
It had
right.
been in the works for a while, but the Lord's timing and provision happened. And certainly you were a part of that process of applying for that grant, but it happened to show up on your second day.
That's right. That's right. I think we'd even heard about it in my interview process. I think the day before I interviewed formally, we found out that we were going to get it, which was then a big part of my interview.
Yep, absolutely.
So I think what I've grown in appreciation for Grace is how plugged in we are to the community, and I think this grant is sort of not certainly the culmination of it, but not the last step either. I think there's more collaboration with our community to do. I don't know what that is specifically, but I look forward to the future of it. So that's been an aspect of Grace that I've really loved and have really engaged with. I think what I've learned about myself is I'm still learning to work with my team. I worked with a number of them before I was in this role, but learning to sort of transition roles and be a little bit more in the supervisory role has been an adjustment, as well as viewing the other vice presidents as teammates as well, and trying to work together with them on these projects has just been a blast.
You've done a lot in your first 6 months because you were jumping in the middle of a moving river, but you've also begun developing your own team and your own vision for the future. So, as you think about donor engagement, alumni engagement, community engagement, what's your hopes over the next number of years as you lead this effort on our campus?
Well, I think my hope is that $27 million grant. We raise the money we need to build the projects that we've said we're going to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big piece. But I think with my team specifically is we want to create regular routines, regular processes, so that we can go out and have great relationships with our alumni, with our donors, and our other supporters and community members, so that we can get the name of Grace out there and engage them in an authentic way, and make them feel like they're a part of what we're doing. That this isn't Drew Flam and John Sloat doing things in McLean Hall, but it takes all of us. It takes the alumni base, it takes the donor base, it takes our community to pull off the big goals that we have. All that to say, I want those groups to feel like they belong here, like they're a part of what we're doing. They are vital to our mission.
I love working alongside of you in donor development work, and it's also discipleship work. And you start to build relationships with individuals, and I've been a pallbearer for someone who passed away, one of our donors. I've seen donors come to know Jesus as their personal Lord and Savior. You see just to be able to walk through life with alumni and donors, because they become your friends and they become your partners. And like you said, it's not something they're funding for you to do. They're a part of it.
Oh, yeah.
And that mission is so exciting, because you start interacting with our students for a few minutes and you're like, you know what, the future is good for the gospel.
Oh, yeah.
And we get to be a part of equipping students to take his word in various forms and fashions around the world to make a difference for him. And we've been just so blessed by the donors who've come alongside us in that effort.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they've been awesome.
We've got a lot of big things coming down the pike in the next 6 to 12 months, and look forward to talking about that more publicly as those things come to fruition. But John, thanks for your good work. I'm so excited to see, a Grace alum who has faithfully served the institution and earned his way to such a significant position, and already doing it so well with humility and excellence, and so excited for what the Lord has in store for the years to come.
Let's get it done. Let's go.
Well, thank you for listening to the Grace Story podcast as well. We know for sure John's mom is listening, and thanks to the marketing office for their work in producing the podcast. If you would like to comment, subscribe, send this to a friend, we would love for you to do so. If you've got some comments you'd like to share with us or thoughts for us, you can email us at podcast@grace.edu. And until next time, live your best grace story today.